Hello and welcome to today's episode in which I have a go at making Chinese scallion pancakes. I've had a recipe link to Chinese scallion pancakes on my to-do list for a year and a half at least, maybe 2 years, and I've decided today's the day. I've got plenty of spring onions for once, so I'm going to make it. First video 2025. This is Shadow if you've not met him yet. Are you going to say hello to the people? You know, we beautiful. Hello. All right, you distracted me. The recipe I'm using is from omnivorescookbook.com. I'll link to the original down in the video description. There's some great recipes on that website. First step is to make a simple dough. We'll rest that and I'll work on the filling and then roll it out really thin, fill it, and then you kind of coil them up, roll them flat, get them in the pan. First up, we need 300 grams of plain flour, which is 2 cups, AP flour in the States. And I'll add a half teaspoon of salt. Sieve those together. Going to use a dough hook just to combine everything really well. Use a fork as well, or chopsticks. This is half a cup of boiling water, 120 mils. I'm going to slowly pour it in as I'm stirring. I've not made this before, so I can't tell you if boiling water is an essential part of it. When I do the edit, I'll perhaps do a bit of Googling and see if I can find an explanation. That's all of the hot water in. Give that a good work. And then I'm going to add in a 1/4 cup of cold water. That's 60 mils. Same again, slowly add it in. I need to bring it together into a cohesive ball, adding more water if I need it. I'm just scraping off any dry flour. So now I'm going to try and bring this all together using the kind of wet dough to pick up any dry flour. So that is all in. I didn't need to add any extra. So now I need to knead this for about 5 minutes until a firm ball is achieved. It feels tight, but I can't feel any dry flour or anything. I'll put that back in the bowl and cover it. Chuck a bit of silicone on, stop it drying out, and then I will work on the filling. The filling itself is going to be made up of spring onions and then a flour and oil paste. So I'm going to make the paste first. 50 grams of flour, which is 1/3 cup. The original recipe wants 3/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to drop that to 1/2 teaspoon because there's salt in the dough, and then I'm going to do a soy sauce based dipping sauce, so I don't want masses of salt, so I'll do 1/2 teaspoon. And I've got 60 mils of sunflower oil. That's 1/4 cup. You could use any kind of fat that you like, so even melted vegan butter, that kind of thing. I'll mix the flour and salt together first, and then add the oil in. Work it till it's nice and smooth. That's all done. Then I will do the spring onions. So the original says 8 green onions yield about a cup. I'll tell you how many I've used because mine they're a bit old. They've gone a bit wilted on the outside. Start breaking those down quite fine. So then I'm just going to run the knife back over them, make them smaller. So all of that's done me about 1/2 cup. Amazing. I'm going to do the remainder of that bunch. So I had a 1/2 bunch already. So yeah, I'll do that quickly. I'll stick a link in the pinned comment on the difference between green onions, spring onions and scallions. Doing the filling and the onions has taken about 20 minutes. Those spring onions took ages to peel. So the dough is ready. I'm going to give it a quick minute's knead and then start separating it and build each pancake. We should get 6 pancakes in total. I've weighed the dough. Mine's coming to 464 grams. So that's roughly 77 grams per dough ball. When it comes to rolling the dough, I'm going to try and do it on a silicone thing, just so I'm not having to introduce more flour because it will stick to the counter. Here's the dough, so it's more elastic now. I'll give it a knead for a minute or so. Weigh each one, roll it into a ball, and I'm going to put each ball back into the bowl and keep it covered. I'm going to switch the silicone out for a damp tea towel. I'm a bit worried about them drying out. If you haven't got scales, don't worry about it, just eyeball it into roughly equal pieces. And I need to roll this into a 6x10 rectangle, and hopefully this has got measurements on it. But to roll a rectangle, I'm going to kind of shape it loosely into a cylinder. Go over it with my rolling pin, keep lifting and turning it. And you can kind of tack the dough down a little bit. That'll help you keep the shape. If you've got a pasta machine that's wide enough, you could do it on that. If I hadn't have covered mine in polymer clay, I would probably do that. I'm going to drizzle a tablespoon of the oil and flour paste, and I'm going to avoid an L shape top and left. explain in a second. So I'm going to leave about 1 inch at the top and 1 inch on the left side because that will help stick things together. I'll do 2 heaped tablespoons of the onions and I'm going to concentrate them on again in an L shape. And I'm going to spread them out a little bit just so it's not quite as heaped up. Then I'm going to start at this end here and I'm going to roll it up horizontally. I'll start by kind of lifting it up and over the onions. If you've ever rolled a cigarette or such like, it's a similar kind of thing, so you're kind of keeping it neatly tucked in on itself. So I've pressed one end flat where the onions are to kind of seal it shut, and then I'm just patting it down to get it flat and get the air out. And then from this end I'm going to roll it up that way like a snail. Like that. That'll leave a loose end. So I'm kind of looking which side I prefer. I don't know if that's going to matter, but so I'm going to tuck that underneath like that. I'm going to pat that down flat. That'll help seal everything together. That's, I think, what we're looking for. So I'm going to put that on a plate, cover it with the silicone again. I'll shut everything down, finish off the remaining pancakes, and then we'll pick it back up when it's ready to fry them. So I'll see you back in a few minutes. The pancakes are all rolled out. I definitely put too much spring onion in the first couple. Did the 2 heaped spoonfuls like the recipe said, but I guess my spoonfuls are more heaped than theirs. I've been heating up my frying pan. It takes a while because it's an induction stove, so you've got to go really slowly. So I've heated that up. You need a pan with a lid. If you've got a pan that doesn't have a lid, maybe use a plate as long as it's heat proof. If it says microwave, dishwasher and oven safe, chances are it'll be all right on the hob because we're not going really high or anything. But you need to be able to kind of seal it so that the heat can hit the top as well. Before I start that, rather than split my attention, I'm going to make a quick dipping sauce, then that's done. And then I'm not burning anything. You don't have to use these exact ingredients. I'm just using what I know is tasty. Got a small piece of ginger. I'll put some of that in. I'm going to grate it on a microplane. 1/4 teaspoon, something like that. I'm not making a massive quantity. I'm going to use some toasted sesame, just a small amount, 1/4 teaspoon or so. Not 100% sure how to pronounce it, but Kit Chat Manis. So it's just like a thick, gloopy, sweet soy sauce. You could just use soy sauce and sugar, that's fine. So we'll do 1/2 teaspoon or so. I've got some Superior Dark soy sauce, about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And then I'm going to use black rice vinegar. You could use white rice vinegar if you've got it, or apple cider vinegar. Anything that's got a bit of tangy bite to it. Lime juice, I suppose. I'll do like 1/2 teaspoon of that. Give that a little mix. Check the flavour. Yeah, it's good. Clear my bottles away and then we can get frying. So there is my plate of pancakes. So that was the first one I did. I think that was the second. And then I realised, oh, I need to use less. When you're putting yours on the plate, make sure they don't stick together. I neglected to do that and I've got some problems. Helpfully this has got circles on it with measurements. I need to take it to kind of 7 or 8 inches. Do a bit of rolling and then I'll flip it. Keep picking it up and moving it just so it doesn't stick really badly. I would say less spring onion is probably better just because I am getting a lot of burstage. I'm quite a literal person, so I followed the recipe quite literally when it said concentrate the onions at one end. But perhaps I should have spread them out a little bit more. I'll position you by the frying pan. So I've got probably a teaspoon of oil or something. So I'm just going to try and spread it around a bit and then carefully put my pancake in. Give it a jiggle. Make sure it's not sticking, and then put the lid on for a minute and I'll quickly start working on another. Okay, that's had around a minute, so I'm gonna take the lid off and flip it. Oh yeah, the pan might be a bit hot. Put the lid back on. I think I'm going to take that down to 4 now. Right, that's okay because that's the first. That's had a minute or so. And then I will flip that again. Just grabbed a different spatula to press it. This one's got more of an angle on the handle. Yeah, the trick is not having your pan too hot because you're going to get too much coloration before the inside is cooked. Once this one's out, I'll take it up to 5 again and see if that's a bit better. So I'm going to flip that onto a plate. You could drizzle a little bit more oil in. Yeah, that's better because it's not nearly as dark as it was the first time. This is a non-stick pan, so technically I didn't need to use the oil, but you're going to get a nicer golden colour and more crispness if you use a bit of fat. Is it the healthiest thing to eat? Probably not with the amount of fat that we're using, but not everything has to be healthy all of the time. My stove goes up to 9. I don't think I said that, so it needs to be like a medium heat. Yeah, I think the first one, because I'd started heating it on 6, was just a fraction too high, whereas 5 I think is the sweet spot. I should have said I'm putting each one under a tea towel just to keep them warm. Alright, so that is all 6 fried. The pancakes are all fried off, looking golden, delicious, and more than ready to be stuffed in my face like a little hamster. Yes. I'm gonna go without the dipping sauce just to get an idea of the flavour of the pancake itself. That's got no right being as tasty as it is to say it's flour, oil and spring onions. I'm glad I dropped the level of salt. That's perfect for me. The pancake itself is kind of sweet and delicate, and then the dipping sauce just adds an extra kick. I'm going to annihilate these later. Oh yes. The centre of them's a bit chewy, and then as you get further and further outside it becomes more flaky. They are an easy thing to make. It is just a little bit time consuming, you know, kind of rolling the dough out, rolling them up kind of thing. But definitely a nice one to do in bulk. So spend an afternoon, for example, with a podcast, a beer, whatever, and just make a load. And you can either cook them off and freeze them or do them raw and freeze them. If you're doing them raw, put a bit of parchment in between each one. And then you can just whiz them out the freezer. Let them defrost. I think the recipe says 8 minutes, and then fry them off. It's a great little nibbly thing, but in quantity, it will fill you up nicely as well. I think it would work quite nicely with, if you get some vegan mince, or the technique that I did recently with the tofu. I think it was the lasagna most recently, where I grated it and microwaved it. Basically, you want to dry the tofu out a bit, get it chewy, and flavour it up. So you could do maybe garlic, 5 spice, perhaps some chili even. You could do spring onions as well, but then so then it becomes almost like a meaty stuffed flatbread. Or you could use that almost like a sandwich wrapper. I don't think they're super flexible, so I don't think, yeah, they do tear a bit, but you could maybe get 2 of them. They do bend reasonably well. So you've got a cracking little taco shell there. Oh yes. If you want to try using that as a taco container, I'll link to the video where I made vegan tacos so you can see how to make the filling. Yeah, that would be sensational together. As the first video of 2025, I have to say I am beyond thrilled with how well they worked. So big thanks to my patrons for paying for the ingredients for these. Much appreciated. Patreon's a platform where you can support creators financially and in return get some extra bonus content, that kind of thing. If you want to sign up, I'll leave the link to my Patreon down in the description for you. There's different tiers, so pick whatever feels affordable for you. If you're doing Veganuary this year, or you're just on the lookout generally for more plant-based recipes, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you look for a bell icon and give it a tap, you'll get an alert as soon as I publish a new one. While you're waiting for the next one, have a look at this.